Good morning, everyone. Today, I would like to tell you the story of two courageous men who stood up to defend their country. The first story is that of Dmytro Polovian, a Ukrainian soldier who survived captivity and despair of returning home and found a way to recover in sports and the Invictus Games. My military history. It's a difficult topic. Dmytro finds the words to describe his experience in the war. Less than a year before he joined the Invictus Games team, he was in serious condition in Russian captivity. After being exchanged in October of 22 years ago, Dmytro says it was sports that helped him better cope with the memories of that traumatic period. The 27-year-old military man told Suspilny Sport what thoughts he had about the exchange and how the Invictus Brotherhood affected his life. I came to terms with the fact that I was already dead to everyone. Dmytro Polovian's service in the armed forces of Ukraine began on March 17, 22 years ago. He was recruited only on the second attempt, because at first the military enlistment office refused him because of his leg injury. At first, Dmytro studied to become a grenade launcher, and a month later, he was enlisted in the Air Assault Troops, the 46th Brigade. Polovian fought in the Kherson sector. It was there that he was severely wounded during one of the July combat operations and was taken prisoner at the same time. After almost 3 months in captivity in the occupied Crimea, on October 13th, Dmytro and 19 other soldiers were released. "I had no hope of surviving or returning," Dmytro admits, recalling how serious his injuries were. During the battle, he was hit in the chest, legs, and spine. Although his first reaction to the exchange was, "I'm finally back home," he soon found it difficult to cope with the sudden change in reality and to shake off the despondent thoughts that had become commonplace in recent months. Quote, "When I was in captivity, I accepted the fact that I was most likely dead to everyone," explains the soldier. "When I was wounded, I radioed in my injuries. With such injuries, the chances of survival are very minimal. I thought that my comrades and my family probably thought I was dead. It was hard to come back. We dreamed about what we would eat first when we returned. Stories about food and emotions of Ukrainian soldiers released from captivity, with numbers replaced by words." Quote, "I am also immensely happy about apples now. Even though a lot of time has passed since the exchange, Yulia Tyrapayevska, a participant of the Invictus Games, reacted to a photo of one of the liberated soldiers crying while holding an apple in April of 2023. Now another image has been added to human history due to the inhuman actions of the enemy. These words of Julia Tyrapayevska accurately describe the meaning that ordinary food can have for people who have experienced the horrors of captivity. For Dmytro Polovian and other liberated Ukrainian soldiers, food became not only a way to satisfy hunger, but also a symbol of freedom, a return to normal life, and a reminder of those who still remain in captivity. Dreams of food in captivity. Dmytro, like many other prisoners, thought a lot about food during his captivity. He made up entire menus of his favorite dishes that he would like to eat after his release. He asked his mother to bring him sweet soda from his native Kvasilev. These dreams about food became a ray of hope, motivation, and a way for him to keep in touch with normal life. Apathy and difficulties with food after release. However, after the release, the coveted meals did not always bring the expected satisfaction. On the contrary, many released soldiers faced apathy and an inability to eat. Dmytro attributes this not only to physical exhaustion, but also to psychological trauma, guilt for those who remained in captivity, and the realization of the horrific events they had experienced. Food as a way of healing. Despite the difficulties, Ukrainian soldiers released from captivity are gradually returning to normal life. Food is once again becoming a source of joy and pleasure for them. They learn to eat what they like, cook their favorite dishes, and share them with their loved ones. Food becomes not only a way to satisfy hunger, but also a part of the process of healing and returning to a full life. It is important to remember the story of Dmytro Polovian and other Ukrainian soldiers released from captivity is another reminder of the cruelty and inhumanity of Russian aggression. Their stories about food and emotions help us better understand what they went through and the importance of supporting those who have survived the horrors of captivity. Flashbacks are disturbing, but archery helps the story of Dmytro Polovian, a soldier who survived captivity and despair of returning home and found a way to recover through sports and the Invictus Games. Like his sister, who also survived captivity, Dmytro Polovian talks about the complex relationship with food for former prisoners of war. At first, he would invent entire menus with dishes that he would enjoy after his release and ask his mother to bring him sweet soda from his native Kvasiliv, Rivne region. Quote, I and other prisoners of war dreamed about what we would eat first when we returned, what we would do first, who we would write to or call. I planned a whole schedule for myself. For example, I dreamed that I would cook the borscht with bacon for breakfast. For lunch, I would get together with my family and friends and grill kebabs. One soldier told me that he wanted boiled crayfish and beer for dinner. I thought that I should adopt this technique. However, after my discharge, these fantasies turned into apathy. When you come back, you have the opportunity to order any food, to eat anything, but you have no desire. Dmytro describes the changes in his emotions. He attributes this, among other things, to the realization that not everyone he was in captivity with was released. This thought did not allow him to fully enjoy the food to which he had no access until recently. Quote, I could not eat a lot of things because of the food they gave me there, the soldier adds. I weighed 100 kilograms before captivity, and when I was released, I weighed 54. I realized that I needed to gain weight, but it was difficult to overcome it. I more or less managed to do it, but still. For example, I can't eat cereals and various cereals. I've had enough of them for life. Swimming, communication with his brothers and family support are the things that Dmytro Polovian says helped him the most in adapting to his new life. The games of the unconquered, with their brotherly atmosphere, as he defines it, gave him 2 of the 3 points at once. Quote, I had heard about these competitions before, but ignored them, says Dmytro. And then I started swimming. I was coached by Andriy Badarak, a member of the previous national team, and he kept telling me about the Invictus Games and that I should try it. When I took part in the selection, I liked the atmosphere of the competition, the fact that you are next to people like you. It's the first time you see them, but the support is just enormous. After Polovian was unexpectedly selected for the Invictus Games team, he chose swimming, which is his main sport, as well as archery and wheelchair basketball for the Dusseldorf competition. Swimming is relaxing, explains the invincible man. You feel weightless. You can be alone with your thoughts. When you're swimming, you feel really cool. Dmytro also sees a therapeutic effect in his archery classes. Quote, I try not to think about the captivity much, but sometimes it comes back to me involuntarily. You practice, and then flashbacks knock you out a bit. But archery helps a lot. You have to be focused on the target, forget about everything around you. There is only you and the target. Every movement has to be monotonous and clear. You have to track it. And then there is simply no room for bad memories in your head. The second and last story for today is about Artur Ladchenko. The bullet went into his stomach. It spun around, hit the edge of the armored car, and came out almost close to the lung. The kidney was torn, recalls his injury near Kupiansk, senior soldier Artur Ladchenko from the 32nd Separate Mechanized Brigade. The soldier is 28 years old. He joined the armed forces of Ukraine in January of 2023. At home in Obukiv, Kyiv region, his mother, sister, niece, wife, and 2 daughters are waiting for him. He received the Order for Courage from the president. After being wounded, he had the opportunity to go for long-term rehabilitation, but decided to return to duty as soon as possible. In the hospital, I had a thought. That's it. I've won back what was mine. The treatment was difficult. My intestines were torn up, and my spleen had to be removed, Arthur continues. I am still ashamed of my hesitation. I could not help but return to my comrades. Before the full-scale invasion, the man worked at a plastic manufacturing plant. In February of 2022, due to the huge influx of volunteers, he could not get into the first ranks of volunteers. He waited for almost a year for his call-up. It is clear that I was afraid to go to war, although I was consciously preparing for it. But I was even more afraid to see the footage of Bucha again in my city, with my girls. For their sake, I overcame my natural fear. Already in the 32nd Brigade at the training ground, Artur was very active in learning, for example, first aid. He also restored his skills in handling weapons, which he had forgotten from his military service. In the application for the State Award, Artur's commander described his soldiers' heroic deed as follows. Near the village of Sinkivka, Kupiansk district, Kharkiv region, after a massive mortar attack, the enemy launched an attack on one of our positions. The wounded soldiers on it needed immediate evacuation. At that time, Senior soldier Artur Lachenko was at a neighboring firing position. Quickly orienting himself in the situation, he formed and led an assault group that moved to help his wounded comrades. He engaged the enemy. The Roshists suffered significant losses and retreated under the pressure of our fighters. When asked whether receiving the order for courage from Volodymyr Zelensky was an even greater motivation for Arthur, the soldier modestly replied, "No. Everyone in the army is already a hero. For their families, yes. We are defending Ukraine, and this is already a reward for us." Although, of course, it was nice to meet with the president, especially to hear him speak. "Everything will be Ukraine." It touched me. I believe that it will be. Even if you look at our unit, yesterday's farmer and an IT specialist are fighting side by side. Some came from big business. Others joined the army just to enjoy what they grew in their garden. Some have a large family waiting for them at home. Others have postponed their dream of starting a family until after the victory, because we are all fighting for the sake of the future. It is very cool to feel the power of this unity, to know that you can trust your comrade in arms with everything, even your life, because he will always have your back. Although it is unlikely that my words are 100% clear to those who have not been here. Do you know what really motivates me? Arthur adds, "It's the certainty that I'm in the right place at the right time." Let me explain with an example. In the forest near Sinkivka, we lost radio contact with our guide. We looked for him from a drone, but in vain. Someone would have already written a note. Missing in action. This guy did not want to be a guide, but someone who knew the way had to bring the replenishment to the position. So I tried to persuade him to do it again. I squeezed the guy's shoulders and told him in his face that he was the best. We couldn't do it without him. The conductor did an incredible job, made a few moves, and was already returning from the mission. However, the enemy was cunning. They discovered our routes and started shooting at us with VOGs. He was wounded in the arm and leg and was bleeding to death. After a while, he managed to get in touch. I could feel that he was already losing consciousness. I called the guys from the neighboring positions and asked them to send someone to look for the soldier. I started forming a rescue group in my reserve. Most of them refused because they believed that in the night forest full of enemies, the chances of finding someone were negligible and we would put even more people down. Those 2 hours of the search operation felt like a week to me. I felt incredibly responsible for my comrade's life. He still managed to reach for his weapon with his surviving hand and make a shot in the air. That was the sound beacon that tracked him down. We sometimes talk to that guy on the phone, and every time he says, almost crying, "If not for you, everything could have ended differently." Today, the 32nd Separate Mechanized Brigade, in which Artur Lachenko serves, is fighting in the Touretsk sector. That's all for today, friends. If you liked this video, please like it, subscribe, and write in the comments my shortcomings and what can be done better in a video of this nature. I'd really appreciate some healthy criticism to help me get better and make better videos for you.